Hello and welcome to another episode of Frame and Reference. I'm your host, Kenny McMillan, and you're listening to episode 100 with John Joffin, ASC, DP of Star Trek Picard. This is a great conversation that I'm sure you're going to love, and I just wanted to quickly say thank you so much for listening for the past 3 years. 100 episodes is certainly an achievement for me, and I'm glad to share it with you, and I look forward to the next 100. So, that out of the way, please enjoy my conversation with John Joffin.
Yeah, totally. Well, the whole F1 thing, we started watching that. A friend of mine told me about the Netflix show. Started watching it with my 15-year-old son, and we're totally into it now. But it's amazing how far they've come, and I can't imagine how much money they're pouring into that.
Yeah. Jeez. Yeah. You watching anything else cool?
Yeah, I mean, we love Succession. It's a great watch. I read this great book called Unscripted about Sumner Redstone. It was sort of like a real life Succession. I just finished that. It was pretty cool. What else? What are you watching?
Succession. We kind of just got started on Foundation.
Oh yeah.
Which just because we're big sci-fi nerds, which obviously we'll get to in a while, but yeah. Succession was good. Foundation's been pretty cool. What else? I've been so busy recently, which is funny because this is usually the opposite problem where I ask someone, I just got off a film, I haven't watched anything, and now I'm in the same position where I'm like, man, you really don't have time, which kind of sucks because I feel like that's kind of where you get your creative juices flowing, when you watch other stuff.
Completely. I've been watching it from the beginning, but I love Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. I love it's so great, it's so fun, it's so light, but the photography on that is just next level. It's so good. It's insanely good. Yeah. And it's also in this season, it's changed quite a lot too, because they're aging and they take it further. But yeah, I mean, on that show, the production design, the costumes, the colors, it's really, really inspiring. And David Mullen, guy's got to figure it out.
David Mullen, I don't know how online you are, but David Mullen has been a really, I'll say, important voice online because he's on every forum, just helping people out and stuff like that. One time he politely jumped down my throat when I had a large format cinematography all backwards. I had to have I fell into the fallacy early. This is 4 or 5 years ago, but I fell into the same fallacy that everyone falls into, where it's there's a large format look and all this and crop factors, and he was just no, stop, you're hurting us all.
Yeah, another guy who's really interesting is, have you ever met Jay Holbert? He wrote the Lens book.
Jay's a good friend of mine, a good acquaintance, I should say.
Yeah, he's amazing. And I mean, any question you have, he can answer. And he has this knack of answering it in a way you can understand too.
Yeah.
Because speaking of fallacies with large format, I didn't totally understand large format. I've been shooting it pretty much exclusively lately. And I thought that there was a similar kind of thing that happens with 16 mil, 35. As you get larger, you get thinner depth of field, and it's inherent to the film stock and the way it's. And so he actually explained it to me, and it's actually in digital, it doesn't change. It doesn't matter how big your sensor is, the depth of field is always the same. However, once you get into large format, you're seeing a larger field of view, so you can instead of using say a 29, you can maybe use a 40, and so you get the inherent quality of the longer lens. It has nothing to do with that. And he just explained it. I was like, oh, no, I had it wrong, but there you go.
Yeah. No, I got my Cine Lens manual signed by him and Probst. And
those guys are amazing.
Yeah, Jay's a treat. Actually, there's one of these podcasts with Jay. Last year, about halfway through last year, I had Lens Month, so I interviewed him, Alex Nelson from Zero Optic, the Atlas Lens Co guys, the dude from Tokina, what's his name? Ryan Avery, and one other person. But yeah, I had a whole Lens Month about it.
That's cool.
That is
speaking of that. Sorry, I
Go
keep
ahead.
interrupting you. I think there's
No,
a
no, no.
delay here. So no. You were mentioning the Atlas guys. I actually just finished shooting with those unreleased Mercury large format anamorphics,
Yeah, dude.
and I really like those. They're very nice. Yeah, they're
Yeah,
very interesting lenses and small too.
that's the big thing. I don't know how they like the original Atlases are the size of a bus, and then they're like, we
Yeah,
actually only needed this much.
yeah, it's weird, but yeah, they're fantastic. They do like a nice sort of double flare, and they do a flare streak, and they do a warm one too, which is really really great. So yeah, I was
Yeah,
really happy with them.
I got to see him at Cinegear last year. They only had one. Like they physically only had one. I think it was a
Yeah,
40.
yeah,
And he brought me
yeah,
up into this like secret room in the Las Vegas Convention Center. I was like, come here, look at this. And just
yeah.
showing me the whole they do have a really I think the sort of nice thing about the Atlases is that they're relatively modest. In if you want an
Yes.
anamorphic look, but you want to keep it pretty chill, you go for the Atlases, whereas the Mercuries, I think, have a
Yeah.
way more character.
Yeah, they sure do. And then for me, I'm always shooting. I'm addicted to shooting wide open. They actually perform really well wide open. I found the same with the T series, the Panavision T series. They really do work beautifully wide open. I mean, you get a little bit of edge distortion and sharpness issues, but it's totally, I find it really pleasing. So yeah, I quite love them. Yeah, they got weird sizes. They've got a 36, a 42, a 54, and a 72. And when we were shooting our little short, they gave us the 36, the 42, and the 72. And then for the last week, they're like, hey, we just finished making the 54. Do you want it? I'm like, hell yeah. And so they sent it to us, and we really liked it. Yeah, we spent a lot of time on the 72. I spoke to, I'm going to say his name wrong, but Oren Silfer. Yeah. Oh, speaking of watching new things, did you see the trailer for Creator?
Yeah, dude.
Holy shit. I was blown away. Like, oh my God. But yeah, he and Greg did that. And I spoke with him a little bit about the Mercuries because I think they used them on that show. I'm not totally sure. I know
I'm not. Yeah,
partially. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, he was a big fan of them. And yeah, he was totally right. They were beautiful.
I've heard. I can't remember who brought this up, but it was a Sony fanboy for sure. But someone said that or no, it was Greg who was doing a podcast, and he was like, he maybe misspoke or maybe he did, but he said they were planning on shooting that whole thing on the FX3, which I was like,
Oh,
that's
it's
a
possible.
bold choice.
Yeah. That is a bold choice. I mean, when you consider he can probably use any camera in the world to choose that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, Sony's killing it. I mean, I use the Venice a lot. I've been using the Venice 2 lately, but all the little FX6 and FX3 and all of that, it's amazing just having those tools in your pocket,
It has been interesting to see how the perception. I don't know. I know one person at Sony now because of NAB last month,
Yeah.
but for my whole journalism quote unquote career, I have never gotten a hold of anyone at Sony, so I've never been able to like test these cameras like I have with like Canon or Blackmagic or anyone. And so, but it has been funny to watch the perception of like the A7 line of cameras. They just put them in a new body, the FX6, the FX3, and now they're like, oh yeah, no, we'll use those totally. Before they were unprofessional, and now.
Yeah, no, completely. And they're really good. There's actually a really cool thing that those cameras do that I'd like to see them put into the Venice. It's like it's a liquid. I'm not that technical, but it's a liquid crystal ND. So instead of being a physical ND, it darkens by the LCD darkening. So they've got that. So when you're doing stop pulls, or I remember the area, the 530, the 535 used to do it when it came out. It was cool. It had like it had not that, but it did like a shutter ramp so that when it did, you could do film speed ramps in camera, but instead of the stop changing, it was done with shutter. So you didn't see that change. So this is, it's not, they didn't have a liquid crystal, but this allows you to do, you can pull like 7 stops without affecting the stop, which is really cool, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's called the VND, the variable ND, or the END, electronic ND, something like that. But I hope they didn't patent that because I would like to see. The only thing that is a bummer about that. So I have a Canon C500 and it's got 10 stops of ND, and I am like you. I perpetually wide open. So the other day,
I'm lighting myself while we're talking. I'm lighting myself with documents. I'm opening a white.
I've done that
there to get a little bit of fill light there. That's too much. Something more like around there.
Yeah, I do. I have
a deep black shot. Yeah.
Do you have the one vertical monitor?
I actually have a huge and not that I'm a Sony fanboy, but I have this new. It's called an A95K, and it comes in 55 inches. It's called a QLED. It's a quantum OLED. So before I used to have all these LGC ones. I still do. I love them, but I use this one for editing and coloring. It's phenomenal. I saw a test last week where I saw it next to they have an X300, which is what they use in suites. Now they have an X310 coming out, which is even more nits. It's like 4,000 nits, and they have this next to the X310, and it's like this is like a $3,000 monitor compared to like a $25,000 monitor. It really holds up, and it's much bigger too. So, yeah, I have one of those, not vertical.
Oh, you got it. So, two things. One, I just bought a my color grade. It wasn't a color grading monitor, but the monitor I was using for color grading just completely burnt out. So I was like, all right, time to get a new one. And I got an LG computer monitor, and I was a little worried about the accuracy because, you don't know, it's a computer monitor. And then I colored this documentary on it, and then I go to NAB and I'm talking to the guy who was like head of PR for LG. So of course he's going to be a little biased, but he was like, no, we've been installing those things in color grading suites everywhere because they're super accurate. And I was like, okay, cool. But still didn't know. And then I'm sitting in the theater for final notes on the documentary, and it's exactly the same as my monitor. I'm just like, wow. oh my God. Like,
great, huh?
It's a load up monitor. But you got to get the vertical monitor on the one side, because think about it. All documents are vertical. All websites are vertical. When you're in Premiere, you can put all of your like data, stuff, effects, audio mixer, all that goes on the vertical. It's a nice little life, and that can be anything. You can buy a cheap monitor for that.
Yeah,
but that's how I light myself. Is I put a big white document on that one, the open Google page.
I was just thinking, you were asking me what we're watching, and another thing we've been watching. It's really fun. It's called Love and Death. It's the HBO.
Oh! I thought you were gonna say Love, Death,
David Kelly thing. It's just fun. I watched that with not Love and Death, but it's really good. It's really fun, and it's like 70s and 80s, and it's great music, and it's just fun. It's like just I think
that just come out? I feel like I just saw like a billboard for it or something.
Yeah, I think it's been out for a while. Yeah, no, it's definitely good. And then something else I've been enjoying is Silo on Apple TV.
Yeah,
it's science fiction. It's really good. I mean, I like thoughtful science fiction. I like, like for me, the benchmark is Arrival. That's probably my favorite.
Yeah, that's my favorite. God.
Yeah, so it's more thoughtful, but it's really good. I'm really quite enjoying that.
Talk about a DP's dream with Arrival too, because half of it takes place in a black box with a giant white screen on one side.
Oh, no kidding. Yeah, that's what I want. I want that on every show. And that's like walking onto one of my sets. I just build it wherever I am, outside, inside, black box. You need to start somewhere. You need to start with nothing and then add.
I was going to wait until a bit later to talk about Picard, but it did occur to me because I got to see the last two episodes in IMAX, which was very cool.
Oh, nice.
Actually, I think I mentioned this on a different pod, like a couple episodes ago, but it was very educational to see something I had just watched on TV, like on my computer, and then watch it in IMAX, see how well it holds up. It looks way better. It looks way better. And then watch it again, like on my television, and just note the differences in how it was like the ultimate thing where I was like, oh, theaters won't die. It's just not the same thing.
No, it's not the same. Yeah, it's not quite. I didn't see it in IMAX, but we had a premiere at the Chinese theater of the first two episodes, and that was great. And honestly, I was really nervous to see it on the big screen because it is quite It's quite ballsy and quite edgy, but it's not large format. It's we shot with Airy Mini, so it's not quite, in my opinion, not quite large enough, but it held up beautifully. But there's no way in hell you're getting me into an IMAX theater to watch that. I would be terrified.
Just sweating bullets.
Yeah.
I did the only thing.
Great.
Yeah, the only thing I did notice was just because you're shooting for. Well, tell me if you did this or not, but this is my perception. It was because you're shooting for television and not IMAX. Close-ups were close. Sitting in IMAX, just like, oh god.
Yeah. We did do some shots for close. Yeah, we never imagined. There was never talk about it being in the theater. I mean, the whole idea of the show and what's so exciting about it is I met Doug Arnakowski, the producing director. He directed the first 2 episodes, and Terry, and they talked about this whole idea how there was never really final Star Trek Next Generation feature film, and they wanted this to be the feature film. So that would be the underlying theme and the game plan and the marching order. Let's try to make this look like a feature film. So we were trying to really push things, and I know some of the fans at first. I mean, I'm not really a Twitter guy, but I took to reading a little bit of the Twitter comments, and there were a lot of comments. It's a mistake, yeah. But there were a lot of comments where people and they're not even pleasant about it, They're like, too dark. Yeah, too dark. Couldn't the bridge be brighter? Well, it could be brighter if you were shooting the show, but actually I'm shooting the show and I'm working with the executives and directors, and this is how they want it to look, So yeah, there was a lot of that, and there was good vindication because a lot of people, like my film people, they talk about it feeling like a feature film, and whether they can put it into words, the look is a big part of that. It really, I mean, I come from the first break I had was on the X-Files. I shot the X-Files. I shot a couple of quite famous episodes. I shot Home. I don't know how well you know.
I don't know the episodes, but I watched a ton of X-Files. It's the same thing with Next Generation. Like, huge fan, but I couldn't tell you. I'm not one of those. What's Mark Hamill called?
Same period. Yeah. But the whole theme of X-Files for us was the less you see, the more scary it is. And, it wasn't about being too dark, but it was about not showing things. So your mind, it's like when you read a book. That's why reading the book, it's what's happening in your mind that really happens. So, yeah, it was dark. But yeah, at first there were people who were sort of like the true and tried Trekkies thought it was too dark. But then I started reading things where people were saying how the show was dark, but it wasn't dark where you couldn't see people. And I took real pride in that because I've seen a lot of shows, and I can tell as a cinematographer that they've been shot, at a certain brightness, and they've just overall been crushed down. That's completely different to lighting dark, where you light the backgrounds dark and you have separation and you have enough light on the faces. You're not crushing it down. You're actually calculating what is the end look. It's not just a general darkness. So some people got that, and that made me happy and proud that people did.
Yeah, I feel like, maybe I'm full of shit, but I feel like I can tell when it's been crushed in the grade, because there's just something about, like, skin tones especially just gets so flat and kind of meh.
Yeah.
And it doesn't, it feels artificial. But I was going to ask, because you brought it up with the X-Files, if, shooting for darkness on film, you really have to take into account where the toe of your exposure is. Yeah. Whereas digital seems, especially on something like the Venice or even the Alexa to a degree, you've got way more latitude. How are you considering those dark exposures in X-Files versus something like Picard?
Oh, back in the film day when I was shooting film, it was all math. It was all running numbers. So yes, you could use your eye, but you couldn't really trust your eye, and you didn't. I mean, I was never really looking through the camera. I was looking at a video assist, So yeah, it's all math. I mean, I have my spot meter from back in the day, and you can see my hands, like my hands burned into it. You can see where I was holding it, and I was just constantly. I know a lot of people used Incident. I would kind of start with an Incident, but I would run that spot meter like crazy. It was such a great tool while you were rolling. You could just go in, but it was just always about. And then the meters when we were shooting on X-Files, we were shooting wide open. They only went down, my spot meter, I believe, only went down to 0.75. So we had to do all these tricks where we had to change the ASA, and you had to do all this math in your head, because sometimes you were at really 0.5, you know? So yeah, it was all math. And then you still didn't know what you were getting once you had the shot, you know? So you were doing this ballsy, bold kind of lighting, but you didn't know till the next day. So, I mean, I love shooting film, don't get me wrong, but I love digital. I like knowing what I'm getting. I like knowing how far I can push it. And I think my lighting has improved dramatically. I think the world's lighting's improved dramatically, because you can see, and there's measuring devices knowing how far you're going. On Picard, we ended up we built a lot where it was my DIT Ryan Kunkelman, who's one of the greatest I've worked with, fantastic. He built a lot that was in effect like an ND. I don't know how much he was doing. It was a stop or whatever, but just to keep the blacks deep. And, I came in there. I just started. I was just thrown right into it. I didn't have a lot of prep time, so I was just figuring it out at the beginning. But when he saw how I was lighting it and how far I was pushing it, he's like, we gotta give you some more room to play with over there. We need to do this with a lot. So, yeah, he was great with that. So, but we were quite bold with it. I mean, you've seen it. So.
Yeah. So he basically built you a LUT that was like one stop, I guess, underexposed, so you would light a little bit higher and have enough detail, exactly. Info for the grade.
Yeah. I actually did that I did another show that I'm quite proud of that just came out recently called Schmigadoon. And it's an Apple musical, but not to talk too much about it, but the showrunner wanted to be like 3-strip Technicolor. So we built Jill Bogdanowitz, Company 3. She built this Technicolor lot for us.
I get to interview her later.
All the time now. She's great. Oh, she's great.
We'll get her here because she's hard to get a hold of. She's very busy.
I'm talking to her today. I'll mention something for sure.
Yeah.
Too.
I saw her at the Kodak Awards and I was like, hey, podcast? She's like, yes, I'm busy. And I went, I fully get that.
She's really interesting too. I don't know if you know all about her, but her family, her dad is a famous color scientist. Her sister's a colorist. It's all in the family. I can't imagine. I always bug her what would be like a Thanksgiving dinner around the table,
right?
Talking about the colors. But yeah, she's amazing. Anyway, the short version is she built this lot that she gave a bunch. We did these tests and we lit to the lot. And then what I realized is with Technicolor, the reason the color, you had all these different strips. So it was about separation, not saturation, which she goes on about all the time. But you needed a lot of light to get that color information. And because it was going through filters and film ASA was so slow, they were blasting light and it was really flat. So I wanted a Technicolor look, but I wanted the rich, contrast of modern lighting. So all the words are building up to say that the light that she built sucked so much light. It was almost like a 2-stop ND. We had to pump so much light. So even in the shadows, there was lots of color information that she could then dig out afterwards. But yeah, it's a really good way to go to, you just have to watch you don't go too far and you don't burn out your highlights too much. But yeah, you want to preserve the dark areas for sure. We did that a lot on Picard.
Yeah. It's something that I've postured on in some of my articles is that the advent of modern sensitive sensors, where you're, especially on something like a Venice, what's the second ISO, like 2500, 4000, something like that?
It used to, on the Venice one, it was 500 and 2500, and now it's 800 and 3200.
Right. So it's insane.
Yeah.
You can light everything with one of those little aperture, MC pucks now. But I think the new modern sensors that are really sensitive coming out alongside of LEDs that historically are not very bright led to many years, it felt, of very flat, soft lighting, because it was like, we can just pump the ISO and we can use 2 sky panels and we're good. Sky panels are pretty bright, but and now I'm seeing a lot more hard light, a lot more punchier light, and it does look, I hate the phrase, but it does look more cinematic when you light.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, it's funny that the Venice I use, I don't often use the higher ISO. And when I do, then I'm very much so using that ND, so I'm exposing it more at like 1600. It's good when you need it. It's good when you're lighting for it, but there's no miracle cure. Like if there's no light, there's no light. So I did another show. I did 6 episodes of Big Sky, and Oliver Bockelberg, he was the first DP, and he was shooting everything at 3200 or 2500 because of the Venice one. And he was doing the bright daylight like that too. And I jumped into it and I'm like, I'm not going to change it. I'm just going to go with it. And it was pretty amazing having that sort of sensitivity and being able to really soften the light and use way less than you normally would.
Yeah. That actually brings up a question I had, because the first 2 seasons of Picard felt incredibly different. Obviously, one of them was a pandemic project, but even looked different. Yeah. I don't know who shot what, so I don't know if there was a difference there. And then this third one, it feels like a completely, in a good way, not that, feels like a completely different project. And I was wondering what kind of the conversations were between you and the directors and executives, whoever, about like the willingness to ditch whatever they were doing for the first 2 seasons visually, if they wanted to hold anything over, or if there were any kind of, show Bible things that they kept.
Yeah. Well, they saw some things on my reel that I liked, and for the most part, I do natural lighting, natural sort of contrasty yet soft lighting. And it's not, my highlights are typically not too blown out. They're just nice and rich, and I tend to like pull them back as much as I can. So they reacted well to that. And then after looking at the shows, I was thinking a bit, I was looking for some references, and I mentioned to them that I went back to Star Wars, and I said with Star Wars, Rogue One was the first Star Wars movie that I saw that actually, the movies are great. They're all great, but just look-wise, that really worked for me because the lighting was great, just knocked it out of the park. The lighting was so natural, so real, so I liked, and when I was pitching to them, I liked the idea of science fiction and things being fantasy like, but I want to ground it in reality. I want it to look real. I want the lighting to look real. I don't ever want it to be like we're on the bridge and the bridge is lit it's just ringed with sky panels, with what they call them, the chippers, the grids on them. The British call them chippers.
Oh, do you the egg crates?
Yeah, they call them chippers. That's how they used to cut potatoes, right? With the tool sauce.
That's funny. Yeah.
So, and I could go on for hours about light tools, and
this is the podcast to do
as
that.
Much as I can. Yeah. I fight like crazy. Everyone always brings them up, and they're an easy solution. That said, I hate light tools until I absolutely really need them, and I will ask for them. And I don't make no bones about that. But to me, big sources close to faces always look really good. They're inconvenient to production, and they're inconvenient to directors. They can be more timely if it's not part of your routine. Sometimes they can limit the scope of your shot, how far you're looking, like how many 360s you're doing. Well, you really don't need to do 360s all day, all the time. It's just after a while, it just loses its impact, or it's just dizzying. So for me, and it's funny too, because recently I did an interview and someone asked me, what is a classic Star Trek shot? What's a classic Star Trek Picard shot? And I thought about it. And to me, a classic Star Trek Picard shot, because it's such a character-based show, it's about the characters. It's not a science fiction epic in my mind. It's all the story. So for me, it's a really good close-up. A great close-up that really, shows an actor, like shows Patrick doing his performance, So that's kind of more what I think of with that. So, yeah. But anyway, so we're talking about, so they liked that idea and they were supportive of it. And we did use a lot of large rags on the bridge. And I think on some of those shows, it's really fast to have sky panels with their crates on them and just drop them in and, send them down. But they're really not flattering to faces when a light's that far away. Yeah. And it looks lit. It looks like a set. I wanted it to feel like a bridge, And that's another thing I would say too, is constantly hear people saying, oh, why is the bridge so dark, when you're on a bridge, it should be dark. You're looking at the view screen, you're looking at your screens. It shouldn't be really
Yeah, have you seen a
It's
submarine?
not about a soap opera. Exactly. That's exactly right. Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because Hunt for Red October came up a lot as a reference too.
Oh, perfect.
You
Yeah.
know, so and it wasn't just about being dark. It was just about being more rich and feeling a little bit more real. Um, one of the set that I loved was the Chateau Picard at the beginning. That was my I kind of basically I landed in LA, and 2 days later we were shooting, and we were shooting on that set. Luckily I had some great partners. I had the gaffer that I had was Len Levine, who's just amazing. He just did Avatar. He's just an amazing guy. And he's really into it too. As experienced as he is, he wants to do great stuff. So I was talking to him via Zoom, and we were figuring out how to do that. But we were shooting in the Chateau Picard, and it was all scripted as night. And I looked at it, and I was like, I want to go in there, and I want to do some shafty light. I want to bring some light, because they were basically, we were shooting that. They were tearing that set down. It was gone, and they were building something else in that set. I think the Enterprise might have gone inside there too, actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just wanted to do this daylight thing, and I said to Doug, the director, I said, can we make one of these scenes late afternoon? He's like, okay. He goes, I'll go pitch it to Terry, but Terry feels like we've never really made that set look great. And I'm like, please just give me the chance. So they let me do that. And that's pretty much after we meet Gates, Beverly Crusher. That's the first scene in there, and I think it's really good. And it feels really rich, and I feel like it sets the tone for a rich new season. So I was really happy with that, And also, I was happy with the collaboration that they wanted it to be. They wanted the light to be more natural. They wanted it to be a little bit darker. They were open to how do we make it good? What do we do? That's basically. And one of the other things was I go, the other way you make it look good is you don't put 3 cameras at opposing angle all the time. You figure out what your shots are, and you kind of work a shadow side. You put all your cameras in that shadow side. So then they listened. They wanted to listen. And it's funny too, because I remember telling Len, I had these long conversations with Len. I go, Len, so I'm coming in, I had these conversations with them. We're gonna use big rags. We're gonna hang key grip. Max Thorpe, who's great too. And he was like, he thought I had some kind of deal with the Magic Cloth company, and I was getting paid by the amount of Magic Cloth I used. But I said to Len, I go, I'm coming in. I go, talking about staying in one side with the cameras, staying in the shadow side, constructively working forward to the next side. And he's like, okay, he was just like, because he'd been there for, the season before. And directors just want to shoot. They want to shoot. And we didn't have a lot of time too. Like Patrick doesn't work a really long day.
Right.
So I was actually, I saw Len last week in LA, and I was just I said, remember when I called you and I said I was going to do this? And you were like, okay. I go, well, we did it. So it was nice just to have people support. It's always good to have people supporting you on a project. It's so hard. There's so much to do and so many things conspiring against you. You want people to be on your side. You want to work for people. And I think Terry and Doug knew that I would die just to get them all the shots I could, as much as I could. And my heart was really in the show. So
yeah,
it was a good collaboration for sure.
So were you primarily, I guess this is the ultimate question for every DP. Were you primarily using bounce instead of diffusion? Was there a good mix of it, or were you just Magic Cloth all the way?
Sometimes we'll use bounce, but lately, just for convenience, we're using bigger LED sources. We're using light mats, and we're using. There's so many different lights. I'm spacing.
I've got this one right here is the. This one right here is the IntelliTech Mega Light Cloth. It's a 4.5 by 3.5 blanket.
Oh, great.
And very accurate, punchy as fuck.
Yeah, it's good. On the last few shows I've been on with the other guy I work with, Todd, he owns Source Makers, which are great. They're like 8x8 LED blankets, so you can. Because for me, it's always about getting that light far away from the diffusion. I'm like a monster when I go on set and I see diffusion and I can see the light source through it. I want it to be even and soft, So yeah, they were really good at that. But you know, the bridge was very tight quarters, so we had to work hard to get those lights in there. And we were doing. I have a photo somewhere. I gotta find it. But I was, I'm at the monitor with Ryan, and we used the Bolero system, which is great to know about the Bolero communication system. Oh my God, it's the greatest thing. It's it's designed for sport broadcast TV, but it's basically a little box. It's sort of like an HME on steroids. So it's got your Comtech in there. Then you've got buttons and you have different channels. So I can have grip, gaffer, camera assistant, dolly grip. I can speak to everyone or I can speak to people individually, but you wear a bone conducting headset. So it's not in your ear.
Oh,
And it's not cheap, and it's kind of a fight to get it on the show, but luckily they had it on Picard. So that was great. But anyway, so I'm sitting there, I'm on the Bolero, and it's great because you feel like you have total contact because you're talking to your operator, he's running things, and I'm talking to Len, and I keep asking for more magic cloth on the key, and then I want to fill, I want in there, and then I walk into the set, and you couldn't see any of the bridge. It was just like all white stuff draped around. Like we're using 20 bys and 12 bys wherever we can, but it looks so damn good. It just looks so. It doesn't look lit, and that's what I feel like I spend my career trying to do that, not making it look lit, lighting without making it look lit.
Yeah. So they gave, when we went and saw the thing in IMAX, they gave us these very nice prints of the crew on the D. I'm sure the promo photo I'm talking about. It's very red.
Yeah.
But the print was very nice, and I put that together with, there's a shot of Counselor Troy where there's just this very beautiful soft light coming from our right, and in that shot alone I went, I know this guy. Like suddenly I just saw like the giant whack of soft light everywhere, which is of course the DP in me. I'm sure no one else is sitting there going like, oh, wait a minute. But I wanted to know because like you said, that whole Enterprise D set is there had to have been a fight about like trying to make it look like the show versus trying to make it look like your show.
Definitely. Absolutely.
And then putting your giant 20 by 20 on the side.
Yeah. So it's funny to just to get back then to say, but one of the actors, I won't mention her name, but I love her, but she's great. She was having a bad night. She was mad at everyone. And then she turned to me and she goes, where's my special light? Because I think one of the other DPs held like a bounce, like a 4-hour bounce. And I go, see that 12 by over there? That's your special light. Inches away from your face. But yeah, so the Enterprise, it was interesting because yes, we talked about the Enterprise it was a lot of discussion about the lighting because that set was accurate to the inch, the carpet, just everything about it. There was nothing we could change.
Right.
A couple of beefs I had with the set is, the panel that's right behind, there's a wall right behind Picard where he sits in his captain's chair, which drives me crazy. I was like, can we do something about that? Nope, staying the way it is,
Yeah.
And then I try to widen the lights that were on the side. Nope, it stays. But as a compromise, they made the walls fly on the side so we could bring in our key light from the side. So we had that big soft light, above the Oculus thing that was over there. We talked about Next Generation being really warm. That was really important. It always looked really warm. And what's funny too is I used to watch it, but I went back to look at it. It's not the way I remember it.
Yeah.
But
my favorite part is all the soap opera framing where you've got 4 people in a line fit in that 4-3, and they're all somehow having a conversation like that.
Yeah. So the first time we shot it, we did the reveal, we turned the lights on. We went more for the way it actually was lit. Like we went for that sort of brightness, but luckily, because we wanted people to remember it, we wanted to feel the same way. Luckily, the ship was under attack and things got kind of messy. And so at that point, Terry gave me the license to start making things a little bit darker and more in line with the show. So I think it played pretty nicely. Yeah, I think it worked. It worked quite well in the end.
Yeah, I think you did a perfect job making that feel modern, but still, because that's something we've talked about a lot on this podcast is like how important your production designer is.
Yeah,
I've said time and time again that the DP often gets credit for what the production designer did. Or or the colorist, you know, and you're like, no, the wall was just green. They didn't time it green.
Or get flamed for something the production designer did.
Yeah, yeah. And so with that said, especially for how you know, the 80s construction it was, where it was very, you know, walls and flat and surfaces, and still made it look. I think you did a great job with it.
Oh, thanks a lot. Yeah, well, I mean, what they did replicating it was unbelievable. It was amazing to be in there. It was crazy. The first day we went to shoot it, to watch the cast file in and just see them all tear up. It was quite something. Yeah, super.
Oh, yeah, that's got to be surreal.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, the production designer Dave Blass, he was really good. He was very helpful when I was asking for lights added in places. And yeah, he was really good. Yeah, he was quite happy, and he did some good stuff. One of my proudest sets was the Borg nest, the Borg lair.
Yeah,
and that was like, there was a lot of work with that, trying to get it into. It was a really small room. So basically, you know, I'm trying to think what the Daystrom is, the lab where they find data. Everything at that set, it's all one room, and they just recycle that set like crazy. So when I got there, it was the Helios, you know, that was the spaceship that Crusher's on. Yeah, it was just everything. And then the hallways, you know, the hallways where they bump into Moriarty.
Yeah.
It's just two little hallways, so it was quite a trick to kind of make it always feel different, you know. Yeah, what else I'm trying to think what else we used it for. And then yeah, it became the Borg lair, and it wasn't really a big set at all. So it was a lot of work getting it to working together with the art department and figuring out the best way to do that. And that one kind of feeds back into Rogue One, where if you watch the original Star Trek Next Gen, the Borg lair was always very green. It was a very theatrical, kind of like a sort of a stage green.
A lot of concert lights.
So, yeah, but it was a particular shade and hue of green, and I wanted to push it more into an industrial green, so it made sense. So, yeah, they loved that, and it actually worked quite well. And then we mixed it with the sodium. So the color of the green is more like you would see in industry or out at a factory somewhere. It wouldn't be like something you would see on stage, you know?
So like fluorescent green. Kind of like bad fluorescent green.
You were sort of nebulous. Exactly. That's exactly right. That's yeah. And then the orange is more like sodium vapor kind of thing. So it just feels very industrial and real.
Living in LA, I do miss the sodium vapor lights. There's a few streets that didn't get the upgrade, but those daylight LEDs are just brutal. I mean, yeah, you can see everything, but like they're safe, but and then they die. And
sodium is really nice. There was a time when people didn't like sodium, but I love them. They're absolutely beautiful. Yeah, that was good. And then the other place where we kept those sort of colors too, but not quite as green, it was sort of more muted green, was all the exterior market stuff. You know, the planet where
Worf and
that, believe it or not, that's the only exterior we did on the whole season. Basically, that was 5 nights.
Oh, that's a real exterior
to shoot that. It's a real exterior. It's a real town. They did a great job with it. Yeah. I'm blanking on the name of the place. It's something ranch. It's in Santa Clarita. I'll think of it that's the way my brain works. I'll think of it in a second.
Oh, no, me too.
We shot out there for 5 nights. The first night we went out, we're like, yeah, let's go. And then the winds came up and there was lightning, and everyone had to sit in their car and wait till we were told it was safe to get out. So we lost like 2 or 3 hours on the first night, but it also just kind of hurt the spirit of let's go out there and shoot. Because really, we should have been shooting there for 2 weeks, and we were there for 5 nights. So.
Good.
But it was great. We did some cool stuff there. There's a shot where the camera tilts up and it looks like it's all CG, and really it's only a little CG. They're just adding in the ships floating around, and yeah, Set Deck did a great job on that. They had like strip LEDs, these thin strip lights that were mixed up with the wires, which were really good. And then I had this idea to get like a track and send like for a sky cam kind of thing, a cable cam. We put moving lights on them, and that was going to be the lights from ships. And you see that it plays a little bit like quite subtly.
That's a great idea.
But yeah, so that was good. And then what else did we do there? Yeah, Len found these great lights. Len and his dimmer board operator, they found these great lights. They're called, and I'm blanking on the name of this one again too, but basically it's like a probably like 16 inch by 16 inch square. And there's strips, there's a mirror strip all around the edges, and those mirrors can rotate and do things. And it looks like a laser. So in the middle is this light spinning, but it's actually a safe laser because some lasers you can't have on set near actors because of their eyes. This can actually work, but they play a lot out there. You see them a lot. They're called, oh my God, I'll think of it in a sec, but we really embraced those, and you could shoot right into them too. They were really, really great.
Oh yeah, they won't blitz the sensor and give you a nice, sweet, permanent line.
Yeah, exactly.
That happened to me. I was shooting a concert. Yeah. I don't think it was a laser, but it was like one of their, what do you call those lights? The moving headlights that you're just talking about? Just concert light, whatever.
Like was set to, we just call them movers.
Yeah, it was set to like full power blue, and I was looking into my camera. It was actually this camera, and it blinded me, or I think I saw it coming, and so I looked up, and it gave me a piercing migraine for a week.
Wow.
It was yeah. Sometimes you got to be careful with those things.
Yeah, definitely.
What I did want to know about because obviously the Enterprise D bridge is a lot warmer, softer, but the other ships have very cool, well, both literally cool, but rad looking, that rich darkness that you're talking about. So how are you lighting that to the stop that you wanted unit wise? Because obviously the set itself is giving you some form of illumination. Whatever set deck put in there. I guess what were those units too? Like, how is that working for you?
You mean the units that are built into the set?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, there's a lot of LED. A lot of it is color controllable. Some of it is not. Like the railings that were in there were not color controllable, and we ended up wanted to change them to blue when we got there. So they ended up they had to gel those ones. Yeah, most of it was color changeable though, but
that department was like gels.
Yeah, pretty. Oh, and I introduced them to something from Canada that they didn't know about, and I felt really proud that I knew something that Hollywood didn't know about. It's this thing called ND tape. Have you ever heard of it?
No, but ND tape?
Yeah, they make ND tape, so you get a 3, and 6, and it's just tape, and you can just stick it on things. It was great.
Where can you get? Can I get that on Amazon?
Probably not Amazon, but through probably some film company. I'll let you know after it's where I'll ask you to get it. But yeah, so we use that. But yeah, mostly we're using we use like light maps. We use sky panels in these big sources, and yeah, I play with color temperature a lot. I play with shutter a lot too. If you see the metadata from my camera, and everyone always rolls their eye. What are you doing? But I've been doing it on every show I've done, and it works fine. I'm not shy about changing the shutter to 270 if I need more light. I'm not shy about going to 220 if I need a little more light. I go to 144. I'm always conscious of the blur, but I never really see blur unless it's major sort of action,
Yeah. In a close-up, it's not going to...
No, not really. So I don't see it, and I don't think anyone's ever. I don't think anyone can point to it in anything that I've done. But I'm just always working to try and work wide open. And I had a conversation with Dan Sasaki about that because I hadn't shot with the T series before, and he said those lenses are designed to shoot wide. And when I said, "Can I shoot them wide open?" he was like, "Absolutely." And they really do look great wide open. So yeah. Well, and that was good.
Oh, nope, lost that thought. Oh, I was going to say, so I guess you already answered the question, but you've got the what's the classic phrase? You light spaces, not faces, but obviously that's bullshit. But you've got the space lit with the bridge itself, and then you're just bringing in those magic cloths to give us the key and then just moving that around, basically.
Yeah, and on the bridge, we had there's a lot of red alert, and we talked about toning the red alert down a bit. I tried to hold back on it a little bit, so it wasn't just all like overpowering red alert. We did some of that. I was trying to think about, there were two cool things that I remember doing that I really liked. One of them was, it's I believe it's an episode 10, and it's the mind. Do you know the mind's eye sequence when Picard's in the Borg nest and he connects with Jack and they go into this space and it's written as the mind, was written as the mind's eye.
Tearjerker of a
Towards the
fucking
end of the
thing.
show. Yeah, it was beautiful. We were out of, like, honestly, by the end of the show with COVID and with everything, there wasn't a lot of money left. And we wanted to do that as a visual effect, but there just wasn't money. Like, surprisingly, there was less money for visual effects than you think on the show. Like, we would avoid shooting that view screen. I was like, they always wanted us to avoid the view screen because that would cost money. But so I thought about how I could do that practically. Like, I wanted to offer something up for that, so we could shoot and we wouldn't have to count the shots we were doing. And I'd actually been to see a Bjork concert the week before in LA. And I don't know if you know what she does, but she uses chains and nets, like projection nets that you can see through. It's not like a traditional concert. So she's got a screen in the back and then she'll have a net in the foreground, like in front of her. And they're projecting stuff on the screen in front of her as well as behind her. So I worked with Todd Marks. He did the projection and the displays on the show. And I'm like, how can we do this? And he pointed me to this product. It's a net that you can see through. Yet if you get the projector at the right angle, you're lighting the screen, but it's not projecting onto the actor, either you can do it straight down or kind of more up and you can kind of project some up. And so it's great. So using slightly longer lenses, we could shoot through the net, and then in the back, you would have a screen as well. So it would feel like they were enveloped in this whole world. So we ended up doing that and we pulled it off. And I think it looks pretty good. I've shown people how we did it. I've shown the making of thing, and people don't realize that it's not visual effects. So it was a little bit limiting. Like, you couldn't do a lot of camera movement, but honestly, for that scene, like you said, it was a beautiful scene. You just needed a few sizes. There's one visual effect shot. I think it's like a wider 2 shot, but all the mediums and close-ups are done in camera, which was pretty fun to pull off.
Yeah, that scene reminded me of there's like kind of a similar thing in Harry Potter. Where like Voldemort's like under, it's like dead Voldemort or like baby Voldemort, and he's like under a bench and I almost said Ganondorf, too much Zelda. Gandalf's talking to, not Gandalf, what the hell? The wizard. Anyway, he's talking to Harry Potter, but it's same thing, that big white room kind of thing. But I think that was largely visual effects. So you bamboozled me too. I thought that was just a big, like, either a virtual set, like a virtual production set, or just.
Yeah, we didn't do any, there's no volume. There is not really any, we didn't use LED walls at all on that show. Thankfully, I might have.
Yeah. It's a very cool, I've reached out to a lot of companies like, hey, let me come in and like do some articles on this. Cause selfishly, that's what I get to do as a journalist. But yeah. It's seems very cool, but it also does seem very finicky.
Yeah, it is finicky for sure. And I think there's a lot more visual effects work after that fact, cleaning things up. So one thing that I heard about that's really cool. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's called ghost framing. And what they do is, I'm going to describe it wrong, but they shoot at 48 frames. And so basically you're getting 4 frames per frame. So one frame will be the actual volume with the footage on it. Then one will be green, and then one will be magenta to dial back the green. And then later you can go in and you can pick whatever you want. So if you're not happy with what was on the screen, you've got a perfect green screen to use, which ends up happening a lot, I've been told. That people end up shooting with green a lot. Yeah.
I saw that at, I think it was last year's NAB. There was a company that builds the like hardware for that. It wasn't Ghost Frame, the company. I unfortunately, I was supposed to interview Ghost Frame this past NAB, but I scheduled that horribly. But yeah, it's wild to see in person because it just looks like a blurry, I guess they must be using Genlock for this, but it's just like a blurry screen. And then you look at the display and it's like a perfect no flicker version. And you're like, whoa, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Yeah, it's a lot of stuff. Another thing that was really interesting that we did was it was the opening of episode 9, and it's when he's in the hallway, And so that's the one big hallway set that you use a lot. That's the biggest hallway that they
with the
have
door
there,
in
and
it.
it gets recyclable. Yeah. And so the windows
red
are
door.
always closed. They're sealed. There's windows. Yeah, that's right. There's windows, but they have panels blocking them so you don't see out. So again, it was another one of those situations where there wasn't a lot of money for visual effects left too, but they wanted the red vines, which they were always going to do with visual effects. But he was talking about being on the planet and the blossom trees. And so I pitched the idea of starting with a, really happy. And then as the darkness, which we find out later is the board, things go colder and more blue. And at the same time, we're blowing the blossoms in the air. So that was like it was a pitch. They bought it. We did it. Unfortunately, we only had about 5 hours to shoot the whole thing, which is just crazy for what we're trying to do. But then we built a truss. We built the whole truss system that would lower down to do the setting sun, that would lower into the flags. And we looked at using all different kind of units, and we went back to this one source that I love that works every time. That's great. They're just basically, and Lynn loves them too, park hands.
Oh, yeah.
Hands do like the nicest shaft. They're nice and light. You can get a lot of them. They're cheap. So we did that. I think we had I don't know, I'm guessing there were probably about 12 of them. And so we lowered it down, and then we changed the lights slightly, and then Stepan in color time, we pushed it even more. He took Stepan and Cody, they did the color. He pushed it a little bit more cool. So we did that, and then we were blowing the blossoms around in there, but I didn't realize how loud it was. And then the actors were getting upset that they couldn't hear each other talking. But in the end, we did it. I think it's a great scene. I think it works really, really well.
It's funny you bring that up because when the blossoms come into the hallway, I definitely was like, oh, that's cool. It reminded me of kind of, I guess this is bad reference but like an Akira Kurosawa by way of Ghost of Tsushima kind of thing, It felt very that was very cool. The whole thing is cool, man. And you did what? 1, 2, 5, 6, 9, 10?
I did 6 of them. Yeah. So I did 1, 2, I do my math, 5, 6, and 9, 10. Yeah. 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 So I worked with, I did the opening to the season with Doug Arnakowski, which was great, and did the middle 2 with Dan Liu, and then the last 2 with Terry, which was great because Terry just knows that show so well. He's such a great guy too, and he's like, I think he's like, the fans love him because he brought back a show, and he brought it back in the way that people really love it. But he loves the show. He's a fan himself. So, yeah. I mean, you can really feel it too.
How are you communicating the kind of visual language to the other 2, or was it one other DP or 2 other DPs who did the middle ones?
It was one other DP. It was Crescenzo. No, Crescenzo Notareal.
I'm actually I'm pretty sure I'm interviewing him in a couple weeks.
Oh, great.
So we'll get both sides of this story. But
yeah.
How are you communicating with him?
The thing is, he was doing the previous season. He did season 2, and then he was doing 3 as well. It was a bit strange because I was approached at the last second and brought in at the last second, and I didn't have a lot of time for conversation with him, and they wanted to bend the look a little bit too. So we tried to communicate a bit, but there wasn't really time for a lot of communication. But he was he was doing what he wanted to do. That's how it is. I mean, as DP, when you get your blocks, you do your thing. I mean, it's not for me to say you should do it this way or that way. He did his thing. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
He's really good. He's an interesting personality too. Yeah. Very, very colorful.
Awesome. Yeah.
We like him a lot. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. He's very passionate.
Oh, cool. Yeah. I feel like I had one other question, but we are coming up on time, so I want to be mindful of your day. But
that's good.
Yeah. I guess we'll just have to have you come back and we can keep nerding out about stuff. But I asked that when we wrap things up, I asked the same 2 questions, but I feel like you already had an answer for this, but we'll go anyway. If you had to give Picard, if you were programming a double feature, and obviously television show is difficult, but if you're programming a double feature, what would the other film be for Picard?
At the same time. That's interesting. That's tough and interesting. Um, I'm finally out of words.
Well, I thought you were going to jump right on Andor because I think that would be an interesting.
Well, it's funny you say that though, because for me,
or not Andor, but Rogue One. But yeah, Andor's so good.
Well, yeah, Rogue One. Andor for me is like the jewel in the crown. I was just gobsmacked at that show. It's just gorgeous. It's the production design, the costumes, the shooting, the story. It's just everything about it. Yeah, that to me, because I like Mandalorian, but there's times when I feel like it's a little lacking in story. And I have a 15-year-old son, and so I value the time we spend watching together. And he never really got into Star Wars, but he liked the Mandalorian and he wanted to watch Boba Fett. But he struggled with Andor, but I powered right through it. I thought it was fantastic. I guess you're right. I don't think I would show Rogue One in the double feature because I think I would show something further away from it because I think it's a big dream to live up to. You know?
Sure. Well, you could put Hunt for the Red October in there, and that feels
exactly. Or Caddyshack, maybe something like that. So,
yeah. It's funny. I've used this example a bunch, but when I interviewed Cronenweth, I was like, he was doing Being the Ricardos, and I was like, what would your double feature be? And he goes, Alien versus Predator.
That's so neat.
Awesome. That's good. Yeah.
One thing about Cronenweth, Tales from the Loop, that's another one of those science fiction shows that I love where you think something bad's going to happen, but it doesn't really, and the people are all mostly good people. I love that show so much. And he did a beautiful job. Yeah.
I didn't hit him with this when I was talking to him. I did a little bit before we started recording, but his visual style is definitely what informed a large chunk of my own cinematography. He's just very good at making things look very natural and
he's just the nicest guy too. He's just like this
very casual,
sweet guy. Every time I bump into him or see him, he's just so friendly and so kind.
Yeah. I was like, I was going to say with Andor, I've been trying to convince people to watch it, and they're like, whatever, not really into Star Wars. I'm like, it's not even really a Star Wars show.
It's not.
Like, it's an amazing drama.
What about that location? The location when they're out in the mountains there? My God, it's just stunning.
I have been trying to figure out where that was for a while because especially it's like the opening to Rogue One where they're
isn't it Scotland or Ireland?
It must be. But the fog, they got blessed with like that kind of high enough fog, but
yeah,
that film or that show also reminded me that like sometimes, because it's been real gray and foggy here in LA, and sometimes overcast looks really nice on camera because you get there, you're like,
I deal with it up in Canada, and I find, I don't know, for me, it's a bit too flat, and then it's tricky because when I do all the negative fill that I do, it kind of comes in a harsh sort of way once you do that. It's tricky to work with. I find it tricky, or you just embrace it, and then it just looks black to me,
Yeah. It could be that our overcast is slightly thinner, so maybe we're getting a little more punch on it.
Maybe
But
that's what it is.
Well, and also I live by the beach, so like when you go back over the hill towards Burbank, suddenly it's like, what the hell? It's 75 and sunny up here. Like,
last week there was that huge fog layer, right? The marine layer.
Yeah. Actually, I just realized I'm wearing a shirt that says Montana that I got in Whitefish that says Canada's Tijuana.
Oh, that's amazing.
I just realized I threw this on.
That's good.
But the final question, everyone, I heard a lot of podcasts where people go like, "Oh, what's the best piece of advice you got?" And I think it always ends up being like, "Oh, stick with it." What's the worst piece of advice you ever got?
That's a good one. I guess. Probably the worst piece of advice is to have a vision and stick by your vision, and find as more. And yes, you should have a vision. There's no question about that. But the more I work in the business, the more I find if you open your ears and you listen to what people are saying around you, they're seeing it, like, oftentimes, many times, almost every time, the director's seeing it from a different point of view than you are. Sometimes the gaffer's seeing it from a different point of view. It's good to have a vision and it's good to stay strong to your ideals, but it's always good to consider what everyone is saying around you, because I do this thing sometimes where I'm like, someone will make a suggestion, I'll be like, no, and I'll be, oh, actually, yeah, no, let's talk about that. So I really think it's good just to hear and consider. I think that's the most important lesson I've learned lately. And oftentimes it's a lot better when you come in and you've got to be agile and flexible when you come to set, because things change all the time and things get better. So I think it's good to have a vision, but I think it's good to feel things. I mean, mostly you should feel the emotion that's happening and figure out how to convey it instead of coming in with a set idea. How's that?
That's great. No, it combines two things that I've said a bunch. One is, because this podcast is like half entertaining, half educational on its best days. But something that I constantly feel like I'm reiterating is how important it is to go off of feeling, because especially with the internet, there's a lot of educators, whether they should be trusted or not. And there seems to be a lot of rules, but even in film school, there are like rules put upon you, and there's a correct way to do things. And, 3-point lighting is a classic one, when you're coming up, they're like, you have to do key backfill. And oftentimes it's the feeling that you have towards a lighting setup or whatever will make the audience feel the way you feel, which is more important than whatever, key backfill, and that's when those rules should be broken.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to know the rules to start with. It's good to have that basis, but you're absolutely right. I mean, to me, filmmaking and TV is most powerful when it's making you feel a certain way, and that's what really appeals to me about it. So whatever it takes to make the audience feel that way is the most important thing, So maybe sometimes having bright flat light is not pretty, but it's the right thing for the moment, So just really, really important to consider that, I think.
I don't know why, but just right when you said that, my first flash was in 1 Hour Photo, Mark Romanek.
Great.
Was that Chrono? Anyway, there's that scene where he's dreaming and he's in the white CVS or whatever, and his eyes explode with developer or blood. I don't know. I thought it was developer, but that very, very flat. I just got it on Blu-ray. Maybe that's why I'm thinking about it, because it's just Blu-rays. All right, man. Well, I'm going to let you go, but please come back whenever you have a free anytime. But yeah, let's link up at Cinegear. We'll continue the conversation.
Sounds great. Great chatting.
You too, man.
Take care.
Take care. Frame and Reference is an Owlbot production. It's produced and edited by me, Kenny McMillan, and distributed by Pro Video Coalition. As this is an independently funded podcast, we rely on support from listeners like you. So if you'd like to help, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/frameandrefpod. We really appreciate your support, and as always, thanks for listening.